This is a Marketing for Learning podcast, the only podcast in the world that's guaranteed to increase your knowledge, skills, and capabilities when it comes to marketing for learning. Plus, there's a gratuitous amount of pineapples. You're welcome.
Hello, and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. It's Hannah here with you today, and I want to talk to you guys about something that happened this week when I was working on a client project. So, as you guys know from previous Marketing for Learning podcasts, and I'm sure in trying to do some of this stuff yourself, internal communications are a huge stakeholder for our projects. Typically, they want to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what channels we're using. And in this particular project with a client, we had a person from internal comms that wanted to dig a little bit deeper into the why. Why were we taking this approach? Why had I come up with a certain strategy and a certain campaign approach? And in talking to this person, I said something that I haven't actually said before, but it really hit the nail on the head about what we're doing in Marketing for Learning. And I said to this internal comms person, essentially, it's demand generation. So, what is demand generation? The phrase is so commonplace in marketing that I think actually I've never considered it enough. I've never really thought about it because it seems so obvious to me. But demand generation, in its simplest form, is the process of increasing awareness and demand, shock, for your product or services. So essentially it's making people realise that they want what you want to give them. In fact, us here at Mass Marketing is a great example of demand generation. Ashley had been in the learning and development industry for a while. She had seen many organisations struggling with marketing their learning. But L&D hadn't really considered marketing their learning. They knew there was an engagement problem. They knew they had to tell people about their learning offering, but they never thought about marketing it. So Ash then kicked off when she launched Mass with a demand generation approach. She had to tell L&Ders that, hey, this is a problem that you have, and here's a solution for it. So that's a wonderful example of demand generation. And for those of you that are like, Han, where do you come into the picture? I joined about 6 months later. But that's not the point of this story. The point is, when we do marketing for learning, I'd say a solid 50% of the time, it is a process of demand generation. Our audiences know they have a challenge, they know they have a problem, but they don't know that we're the solution. They're not asking for it. They don't want learning. We've spoken about this so much. People don't want to learn because they don't know that learning is the solution to their challenge. So what we need to do is create the demand for that learning. When it comes to demand generation for marketers, it's often considered that we would implement tactics and strategies around building authority and generating interest, so capturing attention in the first instance. And again, that is really what we need to do in learning. But the truth is, demand generation is a lot more than that. So in this podcast, I just want to cover off a few key reasons why demand generation is actually so important for L&D. And I'm pretty much sharing my live epiphany with you because I'd never thought of it like this. And I hope it helps add a little context for all of you. So let's get the easy one out the way first. Demand generation in L&D increases awareness of your learning offering. And as we've said time and time again, the more people are aware, the more they can engage. If they are unaware, they can't engage at all. So it is a case of going out and making people realise that, hey, you have this problem and the L&D team has this solution. That increase in awareness will have an impact on your engagement rates, on your active user rates, on the number of sign-ups you're getting for your learning. If people are aware of it, they'll engage with it. If they're not aware of it, they can't engage with it. That's the first reason why demand generation is so important. But I actually think it's more important because it creates motivation in our people. We are trying to stop the one email approach to marketing learning. We are trying to stop the program by program approach to marketing for learning. But we are in the minority. We work in a society where marketing and learning isn't considered. And what L&D does instead is push out learning programs to people and say, take this. We don't really consider why somebody would take this, why it's important. Why would they even want to? We overcome this by answering the what's in it for me question. And that's how we tap into the motivation of our target audience. You can't generate demand if you don't know why somebody would want to get involved. And if you are then marketing based on why somebody would want to get involved, you're spiking their motivation. You're making them realise why they should jump out of bed and say, yes, I want to learn about GDPR today. I'm being facetious there. We know that people probably won't ever do that. But we are creating that motivation that might make them realise why they should get involved. And taking a demand generation approach to marketing for learning is a surefire way to do that. You can't do demand generation right without knowing the wants, needs, fears, and the what's in it for me for your audience. The next reason that my little epiphany about demand generation came to life is actually it forces you to link your offering, your audience, and the business strategy together. You don't just create any learning you fancy, do you? You don't just go to work one day and think, I'm going to create an e-learning module on storytelling. That's what I'm going to do today. There's no rhyme or reason. I just fancy talking about storytelling. No, it normally comes from either a business requirement, part of the business strategy, your L&D strategy. These are all linked together. So the learning you've created, I'm assuming, is already linked to your business strategy. So you have this product. You now need to make people want it. So you need to do the demand generation steps to understand what your audience want. So in doing that, you are translating the business strategy into what your audience wants. You are linking the three key pieces of our function together just by looking at it with a different angle. This is what the business want us to do. This is what we have. This is what our audience wants. How can I create the bridges between all three? And lastly, I think demand generation kind of summarises what I think a lot of people are saying to me when they're saying, hey, Han, I want to shift my learning culture. I want to change it. I want to make people want to come to me. I want it to be a get to do, not have to do. And demand generation is the answer to that. If you want people to say, yeah, I get to do this learning, they have to want it in the first place. There has to be a demand for it from their own personal point of view. So it's incredibly interesting to me. Again, this massive connection between marketing and learning. We talk about it so much, the synergies and similarities between the two teams. But I actually think demand generation hits the nail on the head of exactly what we're doing here. We are generating demand for our learning products. And I will admit, the reason I'm on this podcast talking to you about it now is that when I said it to both my contact in the L&D team and the person in internal comms, I saw the light bulb. I saw that moment where they thought, this makes sense. We are generating demand in our audience for the products and services that we have that they don't know about. Simple. So this short episode was really about sharing my experience this week. I think sometimes we scoff at the talks and conversations about terminology in L&D. But I actually think if you're going into your team and saying we need to market this learning, that might sound like quite a big, grand task for some people. And that might be off-putting. But if you're saying, hey, we need to generate demand for this stuff we've already spent a lot of time and money on, I think that reframes it a little bit, even though we'd be doing the exact same thing. So there's just a little new piece of terminology for your dictionary. But I hope it helps you think a little bit more about what we're doing here with Marketing for Learning and why we're doing it. So as always, if you've got any questions, comments, if you disagree with me, if you don't think demand generation is literally what we're doing here in Marketing for Learning, let me know. Talk to me. But if not, I will see you next Friday on the next episode of the Marketing for Learning podcast, guys. Bye.